Welcome back to Where Next Adventures, and in this video we're going to take you around Titanic Belfast experience. It's a museum that commemorates and shows the history behind the Titanic ship and the industrial history of Belfast. We bought our tickets ahead of the visit to Belfast and it cost us £44 for 2 adult tickets. We did book via a website called Viator, but you can book your tickets online on the Titanic Belfast website, or you can buy your tickets in the building itself. Once we'd collected our tickets, we made our way upstairs towards the start of the exhibition. Our tickets were for 11 AM. As you walk into the Titanic experience, you just need to get your ticket scanned and then you are free to roam and self-guide yourself around the Titanic experience exhibits. It starts off with an industrial history of Belfast, looking at what Belfast was like in the early 1900s, using photography and film captured at the time. Belfast at the time was known for the linen trade as well as shipbuilding. So there are lots of exhibits and pieces that commemorate this part of Belfast's past. When we visited, there were quite a lot of people as it was half term, so we had to negotiate our way around the initial part of the Titanic Belfast experience carefully. Titanic Belfast starts its experience by looking at the Harland and Wolff industry using memorabilia from the time and posters before moving on to looking at White Star Line and the Titanic itself. The Titanic was part of the Olympic class of ships as shown in this part of the experience, with floor plans, deck plans displayed on the floor. If it wasn't so busy, you'd probably get a better look at these, but there are displays and information boards dotted around the room as well. Once we'd made our way through this room, we moved towards the start of the main part of the Titanic experience. You go up a lift which takes you to a short cable car ride, nothing to worry about here. It's all very gentle and carefully planned out. We had to share our seats as there are 6 seats in each car, so the 2 of us shared with a family of 4. You then go through an interactive exhibit displaying how the workers would have felt whilst they were building the Titanic ship back in the early 1900s. As you make your way through on the cable car, it really is an interactive display because you're not only seeing footage on film, but at times you will experience extreme heat. You'll hear the noise, the deafening noise of the hammering of different rivets and pieces into the sides and structure of the ship itself. And there's also lighting and wind effects as well. So it very much is a 3D or even 4D experience. The cable car tour lasts about 5 to 10 minutes, and as you can see it moves very slowly, elevates and descends at various times as well. This is all part of the ticket, so you don't need to pay any extra for that. The Titanic exhibition then moves into the run-up to sailing day itself in April 1912. There's posters and brochures from the time, as well as some memorabilia including this pocket watch and other pieces to show what people would have been using and taking on board with them. There's then a replica model of the Titanic. On either side of this museum piece here you can see the outside structure, and then on the other side it is in a bit more detail. It was at this bit that we learned that there was a 4th funnel that was only there for aesthetic purposes. This part of the tour we both thought could have been improved a bit. The display of a first class cabin was within a glass wall, which you couldn't really access. I kind of get why they do it, but it probably would have been a bit better if it was a bit bigger and you could have at least walked and stood in the room itself. You couldn't quite see all of the details. The lighting meant that you couldn't quite see through the reflection of all of the panes of glass. There's then a panoramic experience which we didn't take part in. There was a school trip at the time, but you can sit down and put some headphones on and it takes you through the different parts of a reimagined Titanic, up the stairs, through the first class lounges and the cabins, and then the exhibition moves on to the second and the third class rooms, so you can see the real contrast between the different groups of people who were taking the trip across to New York back in 1912. Dotted through the whole of the museum are different pieces of items that either are replicas or were recovered. These ones obviously in good condition, so they're probably replicas, including notes and letters from people who were on board at the time. And then the experience moves towards the bit about the Titanic's history, which most people associate the ship with, its demise. What we saw as we were walking around here were the Morse code messages stripped across the wall in a sort of an electronic ticker type display, and the Morse code messages were included as well on the walls. It was at this point in the Titanic experience that it became a little bit more moving, as all of the names of the people who were on board, the ones who were both lost and the ones who were saved, were displayed permanently on the wall. And there is an interactive display that you can use to search for names. You can input a surname and you can find out a little bit about those individuals. You then go down some stairs, and after that part of the museum experience, it runs through the various changes that have come about with shipping and with cruise liners in the subsequent 100 years. So it talks about how legislation was passed to do with evacuation, to do with distress calls, to do with lifeboats, and it gives you a bit of information about how we've learnt from the Titanic's events and have changed safety requirements since then. This part tells you a little bit about how far down the sort of scale it was that the Titanic wreck was found, going right down to depths of 3,800 metres. The final part of the Titanic experience looks at how the divers, an international team of divers, recovered and found the Titanic wreck in the mid-1980s using the latest technology to minimise the search area and ultimately find the Titanic. There's TV screens and display boards showing the events of August 1985 when the Titanic was finally located. And then after that, just before you exit into the main foyer again, there is a large scale model of the Titanic, almost like it's being lifted from the seabed, and it illuminates in different colours according to the music that's being played. Sometimes quite sombre, sometimes a bit more joyful. So there really was quite a long span of history included in this museum, from before the Titanic was built right up to the lifting of the wreckage and the finding of the wreckage about 80 or so years later. Some of the pieces that are being shown on the screen now, these are pieces that are from private collections, so we suspect that they probably change from time to time. It included timepieces, robes, coats, photographs, newspaper clippings, and various bits and pieces. There's also a section in the museum which looks at how the Titanic has been represented in film, TV, through merchandise, from board games right up to the 1997 film starring Kate Winslet and Leonardo DiCaprio. Once we left the museum, we then made our way just round the corner, not too far away, to the SS Nomadic. The SS Nomadic tour is included within the price of the ticket, or at least it was in the ticket that we bought. There is a different ticket that includes another experience to do with a distillery, but we didn't pay for that one. We headed down then to the SS Nomadic. The SS Nomadic was a tender ship for the Titanic and is the last remaining ship of the White Star Line fleet. Its role was to support the other ships in the Olympic class. So you can see, not quite on the grand scale of the Titanic, but is a ship that was recovered from France in the 1980s, and the reconstruction required the rebuilding of 2 decks in the early 2010s. There's a replica of what the ship would look like at the time, as well as interactive display boards where you can press onto various images which show you what life was like in Britain at the time of the Titanic and the SS Nomadic in the 1910s. A lot of the ship has been restored, but some things still remain from the original structure, and it's in this room that Cam was pointing out to me that 2 of the panels on the wall of this ladies' powder room were indeed original panels, so we're just having a look for them now. And there they are. You can just about tell the difference, which shows just how good of a job they've done. This part is the first class lounge cabin area of the SS Nomadic. You can imagine people of the upper classes leaning against this bar here. And as you can see, we're free to just roam around this ship. This was self-guided as well. There's plenty to look at. It would probably take you about 15 to 20 minutes. It's not a very big ship, and there's plenty of information to tell you what the SS Nomadic was like and what its function was in relation to the Titanic itself. Overall, it was quite a steep cost in terms of an experience. As I said earlier on in the video, we paid £44 in advance for this ticket. The main exhibition in the Titanic Belfast was a little bit underwhelming, and because there were so many people there, you couldn't quite take it in as you were walking around. I suspect if we went outside of half term, it would have been a bit more laid back and easier to read different information boards and have a proper look at the different exhibits that were being displayed. I actually found the SS Nomadic a bit more interesting. It felt a little bit more real, as you were actually on the ship itself, I guess, but you could really spend some time looking at the different parts, the different compartments and the different areas of the ship. And it's an ongoing project as well. When we were there, there was some restoration work taking place on one of the outer decks as we made our way towards the upper deck. This ship, not as popular as the Titanic experience itself, and we both couldn't resist having a go on the ship's steering wheel and deciding how fast the SS Nomadic needed to go. So we hope you've enjoyed this video of the SS Nomadic and Titanic experience in Belfast, and hopefully you will get to see the Titanic experience if you spend some time in Belfast. Thank you for watching.